Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode at Purgatory Ironworks. I am, of course, Trent Tye, and we're going to be making the poker. You are going to be bona fide pokers today when you are through with today's project. So what we're going to be doing is something that's known as a turkey foot. This is a traditional piece. A lot of the old pokers are designed like this, and there's a little bit of a trick to getting this spur. Today, if you buy a poker in the store, you're going to see that the spur here, this is what we call the spur, is actually welded on or some situation like that. With this piece, it's not. This is actually the end of the bar that's been folded over onto itself and forge welded. So this is a cool little trick, and it's a very easy forge weld. So if you're in that intermediate point where you're wanting to try some more advanced projects, get a little bit of forge welding under your belt in preparation for that big Damascus billet, this is a good place to start. Basically on the other end, I put a simple hook. I really did not do anything fancy for this piece. This is just an educational piece for you guys, but it's pretty cool stuff. So without further ado, here is our turkey foot poker. First operation is pretty simple, nothing you guys haven't seen before. We're going to draw a taper on the end of this 3/8 rod so we can put a little pigtail on it. Now, of course, as with any type of fire poker, you can get fancy. Instead of just putting this hanging hook on there, you can add horse heads and all that kind of artistic crapola. But for this end, we're just going to do a simple hook. I'm actually going to round this guy. Even on my square stock, I usually prefer all the hooks to be rounded. Just to me, it makes them look a little more worked, a little more professional, a little more traditional. I'll take one more heat, clean that up. Now this is pretty much one of our traditional pokers. The turkey foot is a traditional design. It has to be done with a forge weld in order for it to function properly. But this is one of those things that lends itself so well to all kinds of decorations. Now, of course, with blacksmiths, if you ever go to a blacksmith's event, there's always fire tools because it's one of the things we sell a lot of. And it lends itself to decoration. You've got brass you can add to it. You can do the decorative horse heads, things like that I mentioned before. There's all kind of stuff you can do with it. So this is really a base model. And I think I am good to go right there. I'll take one more heat and then go ahead and bend this bad boy. Now, in order to make our hook, I'm going to use an old friend. Now, if you've watched any of the videos, you have seen this piece right here before, which is my 1¼ bending jig. This is a Hardy tool that fits into the square hole in the back of the anvil. And so in order to use this, what we'll do is we'll first make the pigtail on the end of this bar, cool it, and then it acts as the catch to wrap the piece around. So let me pop this in place. We'll bring our hot steel out. Using the scrolling tongs here, I'm going to bend our pigtail. Just like that. Okay. I'll take another heat, and then of course what we do is just cool this guy, and it fits right here, and then I'll use the hammer to coax this whole thing around and actually make the bend. It gives me a consistent hook, because if you're doing a one-off piece, there's no problem with that. It doesn't matter if it's a little different, but when you're running a tent or you're trying to sell items, people expect consistency, and I'm sorry, I don't care how good you think you are with your hands, you cannot beat the consistency of a jig. Now, unless you are an artist and are so full of yourself that you enjoy the smell of your own farts, you need to have some consistency. As you become a smith and you maybe even start selling some stuff, you're going to have to make a lot of it. You can't make 2 today and then 2 next month. You've got to be consistent with how much you produce, and that's where jigs come in. All right, come out. Let me cool the tip in the quench bucket. We go to our jig, and for the most part, I'm actually just going to use the weight of the own piece to actually do the bending. That's what you come out with. And now, if I'm real fancy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the horn of the anvil, and I actually put a little kink right here. But again, we're going to do something kind of cool, because if I did this when the whole piece was hot, it would make a really bad bend. So I'm going to heat this whole piece up, but then I'm just going to cool it down to where I want the bend to occur. Plenty of good heat. You can see I've cooled it there, and now I can do that without distorting the hook. So guys, there's the first part. That's the easy part. The business end is going to be next, and that's actually making the poker of the turkey foot itself. Again, this side lends itself to decoration. You can add twists, you can do hammer pieces, you can do all kind of stuff down here. The only piece that's going to be of real interest to you learning at home is going to be this guy right here. So let me explain to you the order of operations so you've got an idea of where we're going. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make a very fine taper on this end. This taper will then be folded back onto itself in what is known as a faggot weld. Yes, a faggot weld. That is the correct term for it. Will actually fuse the end. So the point that we're making actually becomes the spur, the actual spur on the end of the fire poker, and the piece that we fuse together will be hammered out into the pokey front end part. Those are all technical terms, of course. So let me get some heat on here and show you what we're going to be doing. We've got our heat, and let's make our point. Again, I'm going to round this portion here, because you're not going to be able to do this once you bend it over to make the weld. Again, not going crazy with the taper, just making a good solid one there. So what will happen now is I'm going to bend that and prepare it for the weld. We're going to flux this bad boy and bring her up to temperature. Now, as forge welds go, this is an easy one. It doesn't require you to have parts tacked together. It doesn't require you to do much of anything but just fold it over and bump it. The only trick to this, like with any forge weld, is spotting the correct temperature, being able to gauge when it's time to go. Now, forge welding in itself is pretty much an art, and is something that has to be done by eye. You're looking for a very particular color when it comes to the metal. The fact is that a high carbon steel is going to burn at a lower temperature, so the colors may necessarily be the same, but what happens to the steel at those colors is very different. Now, when you saw me put this in, you've got to understand that it wasn't closed up. It wasn't sealed. And so this is going to be a light tack right here. I am just going to tap it just a little bit just to make that initial seal. You can see what we have here. I am going to scrub it now, reflux it, and now this time I will take it up to the full welding temperature and fuse it together. When you've prepped your fire for forge welding, it's a fire that you don't mess with too much. You make sure that you've got a way to actually look at the material. When you're forge welding, you just don't cram it in there and and hope for the best. You've got to be watching the color of the metal, because you're coming very close to the melting point, and you will draw back a nub if you're not careful. One of the things you want to do is, as you're heating it, you want to turn the piece over to make sure the heat is distributed evenly, and then hopefully, when you have the right temperature, everything will fuse very nicely. Now, I'm not even going to wait for the next heat. I'm actually going to start shaping it right now. And there you go. You can see our weld line right here. And what I'll do now is take another heat and then a pair of pliers and actually turn our spur down. Now again, you can get real fancy with your spur. You can make it large, make it small. It just depends on what you're feeling like. I'm not going to go crazy, but I am going to actually take my other piece here and go to the horn of the anvil. And what I'm going to do now is actually just make a little bit of curve up to this point so that it complements the other side. And again, what you have to do is just kind of eyeball it, see what looks good to you. And there you go. Still not quite right for me. Boom. Aha, perfection. So let's scrub it and take a look at it. Hey guys, again, what I'm doing, I'm actually doing that linseed finish that I enjoy so much, actually baking it on so that it turns the whole piece a nice black finish. Gives it a little bit of protective qualities. And then once she's there, cool her off. All the way. So guys, here you go. There's your poker. Now again, this is like absolutely the most basic model. There's a hook. There's not even a twist in the middle. If we were to sell this, we'd put a twist in the middle there. But it shows how the turkey foot's done. And some of the ones that we do are much more elaborate. They're longer. They're a lot more graceful. The curve is perfectly matched. Again, you get the idea though. This is to give you a rough starting point to do a little bit of this work for yourself. The hook on the end, of course, is absolutely entitled to decoration. You can put all kinds of stuff on here. But, hey, there's your poker thingamajigger. You can immediately go out and start poking the hell out of things. So there you go. Thank you for coming by and watching. And until then, I will see you next time.